The smell of damp earth after a night of rain and the sweet scent of organic lavender wafted through the crisp air of Napa Valley, California. I, Savannah Savvy Williams, founder and CEO of Evergreen Solutions, a sustainable agriculture technology company that is revolutionizing the farming and food industry, stood silently in the middle of my sprawling organic farm, where solar panels glistened in the morning sun, and smart irrigation systems worked silently. This was my kingdom, the result of sweat tears and endless dreams. Suddenly, the sound of an old lonely car engine broke the silence. An old sedan, its paint faded, slowly stopped at the main gate of the farm, not far from my executive office. The car door opened. An elderly woman, thin, her gray hair tied in a bun at the nape of her neck, stepped out with difficulty. Her face was deeply wrinkled by time, by fatigue, and perhaps by hardship. She hesitantly looked around, her eyes somewhat bewildered, unfamiliar. Then when her eyes met mine, standing motionless on the office steps, a shock, a flash of recognition. It was Brenda Miller, or rather Brenda, the mother who had left me in this very depressed land in my grandparents' rickety wooden house nearly 30 years ago. Brenda. That face, though eroded by time and life, still could not erase the familiar lines that were deeply engraved in the immature memories of a child. The mother who was once my whole world, the one who promised me with a bright smile that she was only going away to work for a short time and would come back to pick you up soon, then disappeared without a word of goodbye, following a rich, glamorous man from the big city. She left me an innocent 7-year-old girl with my elderly grandparents, with the lingering pain of abandonment, and with the unanswered question that haunted my mind throughout my childhood years: why did you leave me? Now, after nearly 3 decades, when this country girl had turned the barren land into a prosperous estate, a symbol of success and innovation, she returned empty-handed and with the word forgiveness trembling on her dry lips. Life sometimes likes to arrange such cruel reunions. My childhood was spent on this small, rundown farm nestled among the corn and soybean fields of rural Kansas. Life was hard and deprived. My father, a gentle but ill-fated farmer, died in a work accident when I was 3, leaving my mother Brenda, a young widow, and me, a fatherless child, with my elderly grandparents. My mother, then about 25 or 26 years old, was still very young and had a salty beauty tinged with the sadness of a hard-working rural woman. She was tired of the poor life of doing hard farm work from dawn to dusk, but still not having enough to eat or wear. She longed for a different life, a better, more luxurious life, like what she often saw in old magazines or in TV dramas shown on the family's rickety black and white TV. Then one day fate brought my mother a chance to change her life. It was the appearance of Mr. Peterson, a middle-aged man, well-dressed, driving a shiny car from Kansas City. He said he was a businessman who was surveying the agricultural market in this area. He happened to meet my mother at a country market and was immediately attracted by her rustic but charming beauty. He began to frequent our farm, bringing small gifts from the city, telling my mother about the lavish, bustling life there, and not forgetting to make sweet promises. He promised to give my mother a prosperous life without having to worry about money, to take my mother out of this poverty and hardship. My mother, a woman who had only known the fields all her life, was quickly seduced by the sweet words and the prospect of a colorful new life that Mr. Peterson painted. She was like a moth flying into that frivolous light without thinking of the consequences, without thinking of the little girl who was clinging to her day and night. One autumn morning, as the yellow leaves began to fall in the yard, my mother wore a new dress that Mr. Peterson had given her and put on more makeup than usual. She hugged me, a hurried hug, not like her usual warm hugs. "Savvy, honey," she said, her voice a little strange. "I have to go away to work for a while. I'll try to earn a lot of money, then I'll come back soon to pick you up, buy you lots of nice clothes, lots of toys." I was only 7 years old at the time, naive and completely believing in my mother's words. I nodded, trying not to cry, although I felt a vague uneasiness inside. I saw my mother off at the end of the alley, watching Mr. Peterson's luxurious car carrying my mother go further and further away, until it was just a small, blurry dot at the end of the red dirt road. I had no idea that this would be the last time I would see my mother smile and embrace for nearly 30 long years. In the first few days after my mother left, I ran to the end of the alley every day hoping to see Mr. Peterson's car bringing my mother back. But day after day, week after week, month after month, my mother still did not return. The letters I wrote carefully and sent to my mother at the address Mr. Peterson left also never received a reply. Gradually, I realized that my mother no longer remembered me, or perhaps she did not want to remember me. She was immersed in a new luxurious and fulfilling life in the city, a life that probably had no place for a rustic, hard-working girl like me. Later, I learned that my mother had other children with Mr. Peterson half-siblings whom I had never met. She had completely forgotten her promise to come back for me. The pain of abandonment, the feeling of being an unwanted, unloved child, was deeply ingrained in my young soul. I became sullen quiet and always had an inferiority complex. I wondered, was it because I was not good enough that my mother left? That question haunted me throughout my childhood. Luckily, I still have my grandparents. Although they are old and not in the best of health, they have tried their best to raise and educate me. They have given me love, shelter, and a home that, although poor, is always warm. They often tell me stories about my mother when she was young, about her dreams and aspirations. But no matter how hard they try to make up for it, the immense void that my mother left in my heart cannot be filled. Life on the farm was extremely hard. From a very young age, I had to help my grandparents with everything from herding cows, feeding chickens, hoeing the fields, growing vegetables, to doing odd jobs around the house. I studied in conditions lacking books and tools. The road to school was a dirt road nearly 5 kilometers long, dusty on sunny days, muddy on rainy days. I was often teased by my peers as the child abandoned by his mother, a country bumpkin without a mother. Those words, whether intentional or not, were like needles stabbing into my pain. During those years, I went through all sorts of emotions, from the innocence of waiting for my mother to return to sadness and disappointment as hope faded. Then came anger and resentment towards my mother for abandoning me. And finally, when I was old enough to understand, I accepted the harsh truth, accepting that I did not have a mother like other children. But that acceptance did not mean surrendering to fate. On the contrary, it turned into a strong determination, an extraordinary will to rise up, to live well, to be successful, not only to please my grandparents, but also to prove to my mother that even without her, I could still live a brilliant life. My grandparents loved me so much. They tried to make up for all my shortcomings, both material and spiritual. But I know in their hearts they also carried a deep sadness, a great disappointment in their only daughter. The local community in rural Kansas, where we lived mostly honest, simple farmers, also had gossip, curious eyes when looking at the family's situation. Some people pitied, some showed discrimination, alienation. But I learned not to care about those things, learned to live strong and confident in myself. Although life on the farm is extremely difficult and hard, strangely enough, I have a special love, a flesh and blood attachment to this barren homeland, to the hard work of farming. I love the smell of moist soil after the rain, love the lush green of newly sprouted vegetable beds, love the sound of roosters crowing in the morning and the chirping of crickets every night. I learned farming experience from my grandparents, from the old farmers in the village. I like to explore and learn about new crops and farming methods on my own. The older I get, the more I realize the difficult problems of traditional agriculture in my hometown: low productivity, too much dependence on weather, and toxic chemicals. Products that are difficult to sell. Farmers' lives are increasingly precarious, and the land and water environment are increasingly polluted. From then on, an idea and a dream began to grow in me about a different agriculture, a more sustainable and effective agriculture that not only brings high economic value, but also protects human health and the living environment. With a strong will and determination to change my fate, I threw myself into my studies. I knew that only through education could I realize my dream. With extraordinary efforts, I won a full scholarship to study agronomy at Kansas State University, one of the top agricultural universities in the United States. My university years were the years when I was free to explore and learn. I not only acquired specialized knowledge in the classroom, but also actively participated in scientific research projects, especially those related to organic agriculture, biotechnology, and high-tech applications in farming. I realized that technology is the key to solving the problems of traditional agriculture to create a real green revolution. In a national student startup competition where I presented a bold project on building a smart organic farm model, applying artificial intelligence and Internet of Things (IoT) to optimize production processes, reduce costs, and improve product quality, I was fortunate to meet Mr. Marcus Bellwether. Mr. Marcus is a venture capitalist, a successful entrepreneur in the technology field, but has a special passion for sustainable agriculture. He was deeply impressed by my breakthrough idea vision, and especially the burning passion in my eyes when I talked about my project. Mr. Marcus Bellwether not only decided to invest a large amount of capital in my idea, but also became a mentor, a teacher, a person who guided and taught me valuable business lessons. Later, he also became my life partner, the person who shared all the joys and sorrows, difficulties and successes on the career path. Savannah. He told me, "You have a great love for this land and a scientist's mind. Combine them and you will create miracles." With the invaluable support of finance experience and love from Mr. Marcus after graduating, I decided to return to the barren land of Kansas, where I grew up, to establish Evergreen Solutions. Our company not only builds model organic farms applying the most advanced technologies in farming, but also develops solutions, software, and technological equipment to provide to other farmers, helping them to convert to a more sustainable and efficient agricultural model. The early days of Evergreen Solutions were extremely difficult. I had to work hard in the fields, from improving the soil, sowing seeds, taking care of the plants, to driving the tractor myself. I spent long nights in a makeshift laboratory researching and testing new plant varieties and organic fertilizers. I had to face the skepticism of local farmers' competition from large agrochemical corporations and difficulties with weather and diseases. But I did not give up. With perseverance, persistence, and the support of Mr. Marcus and a team of enthusiastic young people, Evergreen Solutions has gradually overcome all difficulties and challenges. We have created high-quality, healthy, organic agricultural products that have been warmly welcomed by the market. We have helped thousands of farmers switch to a sustainable farming model, significantly improving their lives and contributing to the protection of the land and water environment. Evergreen Solutions has grown rapidly to become one of America's leading agri-technology companies, valued at billions of dollars. Our farms span every state. Our products are on the shelves of the largest supermarkets. Our technology solutions are widely used around the world. And I, Savannah "Savvy" Williams, the country girl who was abandoned by her mother, became a self-made millionaire, an icon of innovation and creativity in the agricultural industry, an inspiration to millions of young people in the countryside to dare to dream, dare to act, to change their lives and contribute to society. I have proven that success can come from our homeland if we have enough love, intelligence, perseverance, and a kind heart. And now, right in the heart of Evergreen Solutions, on the very land that had witnessed my pain and loneliness, I was faced with Brenda, the mother who had once been my whole world and then had heartlessly abandoned me. After many years of living in luxury and extravagance in the city with Mr. Peterson, Brenda's life was no longer the same. Mr. Peterson, after a few failed businesses, went bankrupt and died of illness. Her children with him, after spending all the remaining assets, also abandoned her without a word. Brenda, from a rich woman used to living in luxury, now became penniless, homeless, and without relatives to rely on. In her desperation and despair, she must have heard the news of the extraordinary success of Savannah Williams, the daughter she had left behind on the poor farm. With a last shred of hope, and perhaps a belated remorse rising in her conscience, Brenda decided to find her way back to Kansas, to the place she had abandoned. She stood there in front of the farm gate looking haggard and old, a complete contrast to the image of the young, beautiful, vibrant woman who had left nearly 30 years ago. Her eyes looked at me with surprised shame and a wordless plea. Seeing Brenda, my heart clenched. A whirlwind of mixed violent emotions surged through my chest, the shock and surprise of realizing that the woman was my mother. The pain of the abandoned child thought to have been put to rest now throbbed and tore, anger, contempt for the mother who had heartlessly denied responsibility. But mixed in there strangely was something like curiosity, a faint glimmer of hope that perhaps she had truly repented, that she truly wanted to come back. But above all, there was the strength, the self-control of a woman who had tempered her character through many challenges, no longer the weak, vulnerable little Savannah of the past. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I walked down the office steps, approaching Brenda. "Hello?" I said, my voice flat and expressionless. I deliberately did not call her mother, because that title was too foreign, too painful to me. "Who are you looking for?" Brenda was stunned by my cold, distant demeanor. She stammered, her voice trembling. "Savvy, you're Savvy, right? I'm Brenda. Your mother." "My mother." I smirked, a smile devoid of warmth. "I don't remember having a mother named Brenda. My mother, the one who raised me, my grandmother, passed away a few years ago." Brenda burst into tears, tears streaming down her gaunt face. "Savvy, I know I was wrong. I've done so much to you. Please forgive me." I invited Brenda into the office's sitting room, a simply but elegantly furnished room overlooking the blooming lavender fields. I poured her a glass of water. I wanted to hear what she would say to me nearly 30 years later. Brenda began to talk about her life after leaving, about the early years of luxury, then the events, the hardships, the betrayals she had to go through. She told me about missing her children, about her late regrets. And finally, as a matter of course, she begged for my forgiveness, begged me to accept her back, to give her a chance to make up for her past mistakes. She said she had nowhere else to go, no one to rely on. I listened silently, without interrupting, without a trace of expression on my face. When Brenda had finished speaking, when her crying had gradually subsided, I slowly spoke. "Do you know Mrs. Miller?" I still called her by her old name, the one she had taken when she left me. For nearly 30 years I have wondered if my mother would ever return. I have imagined many scenarios for this meeting, but I never imagined it would take place under these circumstances, when she came to me not out of love, but out of desperation, because she had nowhere else to go. "You said you regretted it," I continued, looking straight into Brenda's teary eyes. "So have you ever regretted the cold winter nights when I had to huddle under a thin blanket waiting for my mother's warmth? Have you ever regretted the poor meals that my grandparents had to save every penny to raise me? Have you ever regretted the tears of resentment of a 7-year-old child standing at the end of the alley every day, waiting in vain for my mother to come home?" My words, though calm yet sharp as a knife, completely broke Brenda. She bowed her head, covered her face with her hands, and sobbed. Shame, guilt, and despair were written all over her face. Perhaps for the first time in years, she had to truly face the consequences of her poor choices. The greatest punishment for Brenda, perhaps, is not my rejection, but my extraordinary success today. The wealth, fame, and recognition I have achieved all are a strong testament to the fact that even though I was heartlessly abandoned by my biological mother, I can still rise up strongly and still be able to build a brilliant life. Having to beg for forgiveness and help from the very daughter I once abandoned, that is truly the most painful and bitter punishment. I don't want to let hatred or revenge control my decisions. I am no longer the weak, vulnerable little Savannah I once was. I have grown up and learned to face the past calmly and rationally. About forgiveness, it was a difficult thing, a process that would probably take a lifetime. "Forgiveness is not a switch, Mrs. Miller," I said, my voice softer but still distant. "The wound you left in my heart and my soul is too great, too deep. I need time, a lot of time, to think about it." Or maybe, I continued, I have learned to live with that wound, no longer resenting her, because it only makes me suffer. But that doesn't mean I accept what she did, nor does it mean I can forget the feeling of a 7-year-old child standing at the village gate every day, waiting in vain for her mother to return. As for reuniting or accepting Brenda back into my life as if nothing had happened, that was out of the question. You chose your path almost 30 years ago, Mrs. Miller, I said firmly. You have a new life, a new family, and you no longer remember me. Now I have my own life, a life I built with my own tears, sweat, and blood, a life without you. I cannot let the past ever again disrupt my present and future. As for the material help, this was a humanitarian decision, a test of my compassion. Seeing the miserable, emaciated appearance of the woman who had given birth to me despite the suffering she had caused, something in me felt sorry. I remembered my grandparents' teachings that we should always be kind even to those who had hurt us. I can help you a little bit to have a temporary place to live, a little bit of initial living expenses, I said, my voice calm. After all, you are the one who gave me this life, but it will be a limited, conditional, and one-time help. You have to find a way to stand up on your own to take care of your own life later. I will not provide regular support, nor will I let you interfere with my life or work. And please never bother me or my loved ones again. I gave Brenda some money, not much, but enough for her to get by for a short time. I also asked my assistant to find her a small inn in a nearby town. Brenda took the money, tears still in her eyes. She couldn't say another word, just mumbled a thank you, and then left her figure swaying and lonely. The unexpected and cruel encounter finally ended. I stood there in the middle of the vast, lush, evergreen solutions farm, watching the shadow of my mother, who had once been my whole world, and then become a deep wound in my heart. I didn't know if my decision was completely right, but I knew that it was the best thing I could do for both of us at this time. I felt a strange peace in my soul, as if an invisible burden had been lifted, as if a dark chapter of my life had finally been closed. I had faced the past, said what needed to be said, and made my own decisions, not driven by hatred or revenge. I appreciate even more the boundless love of my grandparents, who truly raised, educated, and protected me to become a person. I am grateful to Mr. Marcus Bellwether, my partner and confidant, who has always been by my side, understanding, trusting, and supporting me unconditionally. I will continue to devote myself to evergreen solutions, bringing sustainable values to the agricultural industry, to the community, and to the environment. I may establish a charity fund named after my grandparents to support abandoned children in rural areas with difficult circumstances, so that they do not have to experience the pain and deprivation that I have experienced. She left me behind. But it was this barren land, this pain of abandonment, that taught me how to stand firm, how to rise up strongly, and how to create a brilliant life with my own hands and mind. Forgiveness perhaps will take a lot more time, or perhaps will never be complete. But most importantly, I have found peace of mind, found happiness in the life that I have created with my own hands, a life no longer haunted by the ghosts of the past. When your mother, who heartlessly abandoned you as a child, leaving you to live a miserable life, now comes to you to beg for forgiveness and help in her time of need, can you open your heart? Is Savannah. Nah. William's decision, a reasonable balance between reason and emotion, between self-respect and compassion. What does forgiveness in this case mean to both Savannah and her mother, and is it really necessary for both to find peace? Share your thoughts and feelings about this story.